Hi, and welcome to today's webinar on demystifying the CFP exam process. We'll get started momentarily to allow everyone to join. For those just joining, we're just waiting a moment for everyone to get into the room, and then we'll get started. All right, let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Amanda Zapata. I'm also joined by Ibi Laiojo, Director of Examinations. We'll be leading you through today's webinar on demystifying the CFP exam process. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box of this webinar. So during this webinar, we hope you'll walk away knowing more about the CFP exam, how the CFP exam is developed, and the resources available to help you succeed on the exam. We'll get started with IB to talk more about how the CFP exam is developed.
Thank you, Amanda. The CFP exam is available to candidates after completing the education requirement. And the exam itself is delivered 3 times in the year: the March exam window, the July exam window, and the November exam window. Now, each exam includes 170 questions that are presented to candidates in 2 sections with a 40-minute break in between. The questions are typically multiple choice questions, meaning they get a question, they have 4 options, and they select one correct answer. And then we have questions that we call the short scenario questions. These are questions that will present a short scenario, typically about a paragraph, and then questions are based on that scenario with 4 options, and candidates select the correct answer. And then finally, we have what we call the case study questions, which are typically pages of a case pertaining to a scenario, and then the candidates would have questions based on that case. All the exams are delivered at Prometrics Testing Centers, and I will dive a little more into what goes into the exam. So what are the content areas? There are 8 content areas on the CFP Board exam. We call them the principal knowledge domains. So we have professional conduct and regulation. That is 8% of the exam. We have general principles of financial planning. That's 15% of the exam. Risk management and insurance planning is 11% of the exam. We have investment planning, 17%, tax planning, 14%, retirement savings and income planning, 18% of the exam, estate planning, 10% of the exam, and then we have psychology of financial planning. That is 7% of the exam. Now, under each of these principal knowledge domains, there are other topics that candidates are expected to be familiar with under each of this domain. The CFP Board website has details of all of the topics. There are a total of 70 topics that candidates need to be familiar with. And as we go on, when we get to resources, Amanda will share more with you on how to access those. But just know that the exam itself contains 8 topics, and those content areas are tested on the CFP exam. Now, I want to move on to tell you a little bit about how CFP Board actually determines those content areas. I just told you what the content areas are, but I'm taking a few steps back to tell you how we got there, how it was determined that those are the content areas necessary for the CFP exam. So every 5 years, CFP Board conducts a research study called a practice analysis. And it is the largest research study of the practice of financial planning in the United States. The last time the study was conducted was in 2020, and shortly in 2025, CFP Board will be commenting on another study to review and validate or identify content areas for the exam. The study includes analyzing the emerging trends in the profession as things are changing in the world, but taking a closer look at the profession itself to identify what is changing, what is the emerging trend, and if it's important for the CFP exam. Now, the way we validate that information to make sure that what we really are testing on the CFP board exam is relevant to success as a financial planner is to conduct a large-scale survey of all practicing CFP professionals and the educators as well from CFP board registered programs. So the information that is collected during the research study is sent to all the professionals and educators via the large-scale study. Not only are we interested in the register programs and what the educators are saying, but also the firms that hire CFP professionals to determine what's important to them and what it takes to be successful as a financial planner. And last but not least, we also seek to get feedback from the clients of CFP professionals to have a full 360 view of what is critical to success of a financial planner. All of this information is synthesized into the research study, and then which is what crystallizes to the content outline that I shared with you a few moments ago. Now, the big question is, who exactly develops the CFP exam? You must have heard rumors about who does it, but I'm here to confirm that the CFP exam questions are actually developed by CFP professionals. They are volunteers that volunteer with CFP Board to create the questions. And when they draft the question, we have another group that would come in to validate the question, to review the questions and authenticate the questions. Now, you may wonder, who are these people? How do we determine who's the right person to be a volunteer to develop the exam? First of all, like I said, they have to be certified. So they're all CFP professionals, meaning they have the prerequisite knowledge to even be involved with the exam at all. And secondly, we pay very close attention to the demographic distribution of our volunteers. It is important to CFP Board to make sure that the volunteers that work on the CFP exam be CFP professionals, but also, most importantly, that there's a balanced demographic distribution. We want the volunteers to look like the population of CFP candidates. That would help us to make sure that we have a balance of gender, race and ethnicity, the region of the country where they're from, the business model where they work, and their specialties. That helps us to ensure that there's no disparity in the content and that we've covered all the topics and there's no single lens that is represented on the exam, to have a balanced view of the topic areas on the actual exam. Now, you may wonder, why would they want to do that? First of all CFP professionals that volunteer with CFP Board are passionate about the industry. They're passionate about the profession. They want to help. They want to see what they can do to contribute their expertise to the continual growth and development of this profession. They also get the value of networking with their colleagues and staying up to date with what is actually going on, both in the education space and in practice. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on during the exam development process. Multiple groups of volunteer CFP professionals look at the questions in several iterations. And finally, they do get continuing education credits. And this is the one place where I hope that as you're listening, preparing to take your exam, when you finally become certified, you would consider volunteering. I will share with you a snapshot of what it looks like, what the volunteer events look like for CFP professionals. So some of our upcoming volunteer events that are open to CFP professionals are First of all, the item writing campaign. This is the time where we have volunteers that are passionate about helping craft the future of the CFP exam. CFP professionals come together to actually write the questions, to do the first draft, to actually draft a question based on the topics within the knowledge domains that we covered earlier. After that is completed, we have another group come in for what we call an item review. Now, you've heard me use the word item twice now in a row. An item is a question. So each question on the CFP exam is called an item. So when you see the item writing, that is the question writing volunteers opportunity. That's what they volunteer to do, to write questions. And then during the item review, some volunteers come together to review the questions that was already written by another group of volunteers. And then finally, we usually have content updates and review. We have groups of volunteers that come back in at a regular cadence to continually review the questions that are being used on the exam to make sure that it continues to be relevant, it continues to be accurate. As legislation changes, as things evolve, they come in to make sure that every question on the CFP exam remains accurate and valid for assessing the knowledge of a potential CFP professional. Now, let's talk a little bit about exam day itself. We would like to demystify the exam day itself. As you prepare for it, the years and months of preparation culminate on the exam day. And the couple of things we want to make sure that you can keep in mind. First of all, please call CFP Board when in doubt. So many things have gone into your preparation, months and months and months of preparation. On the exam day, if something does not add up, please call CFP Board. If you get to the test center and you are asked for something you were not expecting, or if you're taking the exam remotely and something does not add up and you have a question, please reach out to CFP Board. We're here to support you all through your preparation up to the very day of the exam. Secondly, not showing up at the testing center for your exam is not always the best option. You may have missed the deadline to probably postpone your exam, or you might have a situation come up last minute. Please reach out to CFP Board. We're here to support you all through your process. So do not simply decide not to show up for your exam. If there's anything that comes up, a medical situation, a family situation, if anything comes up last minute, please reach out to CFP Board, and we will do our very best to support you through that to make sure that you can make the CFP exam or work with you to move your exam to another window as appropriate. I also want to reiterate that accommodations are available. Testing accommodations are available for candidates who have a need for it. If you have a medical need for testing accommodation, please check the CFP Board website, apply for accommodations, and we will review it with our professionals and get back to you. But please know that accommodations are available for the different reasons and for the different types of accommodations that are required. Now, very importantly, you need to understand that there's certain things you do not share about the exam. When every candidate registers for the CFP exam, they sign the candidate pathway agreement. That guides you as a candidate to know what to do and what not to do when it comes to the CFP exam. For example, it is acceptable to belong to study groups, to study with your friends and colleagues, and to work together in small groups to prepare for the exam. to work on practice questions, to compare notes on study strategies, on text, on chapters, on questions. However, the collaboration ends the day you go take your exam, or as soon as any one of the members of the group completes the exam. It is not acceptable to share content from the CFP exam with colleagues or with study group partners. Once the exam is completed, you've been exposed to the intellectual property of CFP Board, and you are not allowed or authorized to share the questions on the exam. In a similar vein, we typically have people confused about how many times they can take the CFP exam. The CFP exam has a lifetime maximum of 5, meaning you could take the CFP exam up to 5 times. Now, I mentioned earlier that the exam is administered in March, in July, and in November. So know that you can take the exam itself up to 5 times, not 5 consecutive times, but overall the lifetime maximum of the CFP exam is 5. Another myth concerning exam day, switching gears to remote testing, has to do with the question, what is the main difference between the CFP exam that is taken at the testing center and a candidate that takes the exam remotely? The obvious difference is that at the testing center, candidates go to a physical prometric testing center to take the exam. And those who test remotely, first of all, have to register and indicate at the point of scheduling that they would like to take a remote exam. It is not a last-minute decision that candidates have to make. Having said that, for candidates who are scheduled to take the exam remotely, they take the exam in the comfort of their homes or offices or different location that is not the testing center. That is the main difference, and the level of rigor and security review is comparable between the two modalities. However, there is one other difference that we want to highlight and make sure candidates are aware of. For candidates who take the exam at the testing center, as they're checking in to take the exam, they get a notepad, a physical piece of paper booklet that has blank pieces of paper and a pencil to take notes during the exam. However, those who are taking the exam remotely also have the notepad. They have a notepad, a virtual notepad on the screen that acts very similarly to the notepad. So while those at the physical testing center can have the paper, a piece of paper and pencil, that is not acceptable for those who are testing remotely. The version of the piece of paper and pencil for remote candidates is the online notepad where they can take notes, and it does save the comments. So if they make notes as you are preparing or as you're reading through the questions, if you're taking notes, the notes transfer from one question to the next. And it's a movable floating notepad on the screen. So I wanted to highlight that as we go. Now I'm going to hand over back to Amanda to discuss subsequent resources with you.
Thanks, Ivy. I think that was really great information, and I hope really informative for everyone listening in. I know that learning more of just about exam development is really helpful. So thank you so much, Ivy. Now I'll talk a little bit more about support available from CFP Board for those preparing for the CFP exam. Our first resource are the CFP Board practice exams. CFP Board has 2 170 question practice exams that you can use to help you prepare. You'll see here that on the screen on the right-hand side, the diagnostic report that you'll receive at the end of taking your practice exam, and it looks almost exactly what you'll receive on exam day. So the intent of the practice exam is really to mirror the format and content coverage of the CFP exam. It's going to provide a replica of what you will see on exam day in terms of software, on-screen resources, timing. So it's a really great opportunity to one, practice on the software, but just really gain the confidence of going into the exam center. This is a mock exam. The practice exams are mock exams. Be sure to set aside 7 hours to complete the practice exam. And this includes the 40-minute scheduled break. So like I mentioned, it has all the same timings of taking the exam on exam day. Upon completion, you'll receive the diagnostic result report shown here on the screen, showing your performance in each principal knowledge domain, which you can use to help you address knowledge gaps as you continue studying. So again, it's a really useful tool to use early on so you can see your knowledge gaps, or you can save it and use it later on in your studying to kind of measure where you are, and then again, just really get that confidence boost of knowing the exam software. But we do offer two, so you could use one at the beginning and one at the end. The first practice exam is complimentary with your exam registration and can be accessed in your online account once you register for the exam. Our next two resources are our exam candidate handbook and then how to build a CFP exam study strategy guide. The candidate handbook is a quick reference tool for exam-related questions in one convenient location. So it provides additional information on registration, scheduling, exam preparation, and what to expect on exam day. So it's definitely a great resource to review to make sure you feel comfortable going into exam day and making sure you have everything that you need. So especially things like making sure you have the correct ID for ID verification, going over the calculator policy, what to bring and what not to bring to the exam site, reporting exam day issues, and so much more. So this is a great resource. It's available on as a PDF on cfp.net. And then we also have our new study strategy guide. And this is intended to help you gain an understanding of how to build a study strategy and just finding an approach that works for you for studying for the exam. So this guide includes information such as identifying your learning preferences, knowing what's on the test, choosing your study tactics, and creating a supportive learning environment. And then overall, really making sure you follow your plan and sticking to it, right? So this is going to be a really great guide just to help make sure you're identifying the key areas of building that study plan that's going to work for you personally, because what works for you may not work for the person sitting next to you. So it's really making sure to identify your strengths in that study process. And then you can find all of these guides at cfp.net/exam resources. So all of this is available via PDF online for you. We also have our mentor program. So this is a free resource for exam support. CFP professional mentors volunteer their time to help you focus on time management, study strategy, staying motivated through the study process, dealing with work-life balance and studying, and so much more. So you can gain so many valuable insights from your mentor's own experience preparing for the exam. And that's really the benefit of having a CFP professional as a mentor is they've been in your shoes, right? They've taken the CFP exam. So you really get that one-on-one insight from them along your study process. There are 3 mentoring cycles each year that align with the 3 exam cycles in March, July, and November. Open enrollment for mentoring begins once registration for each exam cycle opens. So once you enroll, you'll search for and request a mentor. There are many different things that you can search for a mentor on, so repeat exam takers or certain topic areas, but there are different search values that you can use. You'll connect with your mentor 3 times virtually or in person, however you both decide is best for you to connect, and then you'll connect over the course of 3 to 4 months prior to the exam. And you can find out more about the mentor program at cfp.net/mentor. But remember, this is a totally free resource for you as you prepare for the exam. We also have many other resources to help you feel prepared. So this is just a smaller list to help you get ready for exam day. But again, this link here, you can find all of the resources I've talked about, plus others at cfp.net/exam resources. Some of those resources include an exam prep checklist to make sure you have everything you need incorporated into your study plan, information about habits of successful exam candidates and what they did to find success. So this is, again, based off of research we've done with successful exam candidates, what helped them succeed, such as building a solid study strategy and making sure to dedicate time to studying each week. So a really helpful read just to make sure you have everything incorporated into your study schedule that you need to. You'll also find tax tables and formulas that you will see on exam day. So the tax tables and formulas that you can download from CFP Board's website are the same on-screen resources that you will see and be able to use on exam day. You'll find a list of review courses that are available for you. I'm sure there are many others out there, but review courses that we know about are available to help you are listed on our website. And then also you'll find the link to our scholarships page. And this is important just to make you aware that there are scholarships available to provide assistance on the exam fee or exam review material. So, they're open usually before each exam. So you can go to our scholarships webpage to check out what is available to you. One thing I want to mention among all of the things that I just mentioned is that before each exam cycle, we do have another webinar called What to Expect on Exam Day. And that's super helpful. IB and the exams team help put that on, but it really goes over more in depth, really what to expect on the day of the exam, how to make sure you feel ready and confident to go in and take your exam, right? We want everyone to be successful. So we want to make sure you feel prepared. And again, just ready, right? You have your ID, you have your, you know what you can take into the exam and all of those details. So before each exam cycle, we do host that webinar, and you can find all of our events at cfp.net/events. So now we'll take some time for questions. If anybody does have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. It can be on exam development side that IB talked about. It can be on the exam prep side that I've gone over, or anything in between. But please feel free to type any questions in the Q&A. IB, while we're waiting for a question to come in, I do have a question for you on the practice analysis. How does that impact what someone is studying? So our next practice analysis is probably coming up soon, since it's been almost 5 years. How would that impact someone who's studying for the exam in a couple of years now?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. That is a great question. When the practice analysis is conducted, if there are going to be changes on the content outline or the principal knowledge domains that we shared earlier, the changes are not implemented immediately. For example, the study that was conducted in 2020, the first exam, it took 2 years to actually operationalize that new result. So psychology of financial planning is a new domain on the CFP exam. So it was released in 2020, but schools had a year to prepare. Candidates have time to prepare, to update their knowledge in those areas. And if there are new areas, we would also provide guidance on those areas. So my advice would be to continue to study as you have been. One thing I also have to mention is that from one exam to the other, there is usually a comparison done. So if you go on the CFP Board website, you will see the previous exam topics, the 70 topics, the subdomains, and the knowledge domains, and you will see the comparison with the new one. So it never changes completely. The domains are still mostly steady from the last one to this one. There was only one new subject area, the psychology of financial planning. If something like that happens again, it will be a similar process where we'll conduct the study, the results will be released. So everybody's aware if there's going to be a change. The schools are aware, the candidates are aware, everyone is aware, and there is also time to get up to date on the new topics before it ever shows up on the CFP exam.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's really helpful to understand how the practice analysis gets integrated and when it gets integrated into actual testing. We do have some additional questions here, IB, if you can help clarify. So will we get the formulas to use for the test during the actual testing day?
Yeah, that is a great question. So first of all, if you want to be familiar with the formulas that are made available on test day, you don't have to wait till then to know. You could check the CFP Board website. We have all of those samples available right now, so you would know exactly what you would get. That being said, on exam day, on each question of the exam, there is a button for you to click to access the formula sheet. That's what we call the document that has all of the formulas. So it is available on exam day at the question level. So for each question, the formula sheet is available, and the candidate gets to decide whether or not they need the formula sheet to answer the question. But yes, it is available to you on exam day, whether you take your exam at the testing center or remotely. But like I said, please check the CFP Board website, look at the resources and familiarize yourself with what the formula sheet looks like, so that when you get to the exam day and you're sitting at the computer to take your exam, you know exactly how to use it.
Perfect, thank you. We have a question on scratch paper. Can you just clarify, is scratch paper provided at the test center or do you bring your own?
The scratch paper is provided at the testing center. So it's more like a little notebook and less of just a piece of paper. It's like a little notebook. It's all plain, and you're given a pencil. So pencils are provided. You do not have to provide yours. And the booklet, the booklet is provided as well. So it's not just a piece of paper. It's a booklet that has a couple of pages in it. And if a candidate needs more, they can get more as well. But that is provided at the testing center. If you're testing remotely, it will be the virtual scratchpad.
Perfect, thank you. And then we have a request, if you could just repeat a little bit more information about what not to share with others after the exam would be helpful.
Right. The most important thing for you to remember is that the questions on the exam should not be shared. So you cannot talk about the content of the question to say, oh, I got a question on, and then provide information. You cannot share that after you've taken the exam. Neither do you want to be part of a group where somebody else is sharing that information. So we should hold each other accountable on that. So you do not want to share exam content, either the specific details of the question or the correct answer. You do not want to share that. Neither do you want to be a part of a group or a chat group or a study group where somebody in the group has taken the exam and is attempting to share the questions with the others in the group.
Perfect. I think that's really helpful. Just to reiterate, make sure everyone understands that. We don't talk about this a lot, Ivy, but I'm wondering if there's some basic information you can go over about just generally how the exam score is developed. So we don't publish a number score, we never have, never will, but just how does it get determined, right? Like among, the volunteers who write all of the items and then the updates that happen, can you talk a little bit about just the general practice for setting the score?
Yes, that is a great question, Amanda. Earlier, when I was talking about we have volunteer CFP Board professionals that write the questions, I skipped a couple of steps in that process that completes what we call the exam development cycle. And that's the piece you're asking me now, Amanda. And I'll clarify that for everyone so we all understand what goes on the back end. So when the individual questions are developed, they're not developed in the context of a specific exam. They're developed at the topic level. So you can imagine having all kinds of questions, say 100 questions from different topic areas. Now, when it's time for the exam itself, based on the distribution that we had shared earlier and the percentages allocated to each knowledge domain, questions that correspond to that number are put together to form an exam. So the individual questions, the standalone questions in this huge question bank that the volunteer CFP professionals have worked on are then combined based on that percentage allocation to form an exam. Now, that exam, all the questions on the exam are questions that have been tried and trusted, meaning the questions that have been used before in the past, we already know how the questions perform statistically. And then putting them together to make an exam, we then know what number of questions a candidate has to get correctly to pass the exam. Now, when we talked about the practice analysis, redefining the content areas, one of the things we also do when we complete that process is the cut score process, the standard setting process, to set the standard for the exam based on the new combination of knowledge domains. So that is the point where the cut score, the number of questions that need to be answered correctly, that is when that is set. And that is based on, number one, the percentage allocated to each knowledge domain on the exam, and the total number of questions of the exam, which is 170. So my recommendation and my advice to every candidate is to do your best to answer all the questions, or as many questions as you can. It is not to your advantage to spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes or even 5 minutes on just one question. If a question seems to be confusing to you for the minute, you can flag that question and continue in the section that you're working on so that you can get through as many questions in that section as possible. And then if you have time, you can go back to that one question, rather than spending 10 minutes on one question and not getting through the entire section. The reason is because each question counts for 1 point. So the more questions you can answer and answer correctly, the higher your chances of passing the exam, rather than trying to finish the first 10 questions and then not have enough time to get to the remaining, say, 20 questions in the domain. So that would be my recommendation. But the exam itself, it's already calibrated psychometrically on the back end, so that the score is already coded into each question, which is why as soon as you complete the exam, candidates get the preliminary score report based on how the question is supposed to perform. We give you the preliminary results of how you have done on the exam. Now, between that day where you get your preliminary results and the time you get your final results, CFP Board and our test development partners also do another validation to make sure that the questions indeed are performing as expected, and indeed the calibration is still consistent. That is when you now get the final result. So take home for you 2 things. Number 1, answer as many questions as you can to get to the end. Number 2, if there's a question that seems a little tricky or you're getting stuck on it, you can flag the question and move on.
Thank you, Abby. I think that was so helpful explanation. I know that we don't go over that information a lot, so I hope that that was really helpful for everyone, and I know I learned a lot. One other question for you here, and this is more on kind of exam day, details. When I register for the exam date, my middle name didn't carry over from my CFP Board account to my Prometric ticket. Is that okay? How detailed do we need to be with making sure all of the details match on our Prometric appointments?
Yeah. I love this question because the little things are the things that can throw you off on the exam day itself. So what I would recommend is, if you see any discrepancy on your name, or whether it's your full name, on your government issued ID, any disconnect, middle name, last name, abbreviations, please reach out to CFP Board before your exam so that we can work with you. If it requires us reaching out to Prometric on your behalf before exam day, we will do that. And if it is not going to be a problem, we will let you know as well. So you don't want to find out on the exam day, and you don't want it to be dependent on the testing center that you're going to or the person you interact with. You want to be sure before exam day. So I would recommend sending an email to examinations with an S at cfpboard.org, examinations with the S at cfpboard.org, to ask any questions you have about identification, matching, or any problems whatsoever, so we can sort through that before. And then please, you can email getcertified2024 at cfpboard.org. We would work with you as well, but you want to be sure before exam day.
Perfect. Thank you, Abby. I think that's helpful. There are a couple questions on practice exam that I can help answer. The first one is, what is the price of the second practice exam and where are they available on the website? Both practice exams are available through your online account. So when you log in, I believe on the left-hand side, the link says My Store, and you can and you'll be brought to the practice exams that are available for you to purchase. It'll be 1 and 2 are available, so you can purchase both of them now at any time. Now, when you are registered for the exam, when you go through the registration process, you can add the first practice exam for free to your exam registration. So I think everyone should take advantage of that, even if you are retaking the exam. And even if you've taken it the first time, I think it's still an opportunity to go through again and get any other exam day jitters out. But both are available for purchase at any time. Again, the first one is free with your exam registration. And generally during early registration, the second one is you usually get like maybe a minor discount if you purchase the second one also at the time of registration. Otherwise, if you purchase it separately, the second practice exam, if you purchase that separately, is $249, again, available through your online account at any time. And there's another question on the practice exam regarding what you see after the exam. Does it give you a pass or fail result, or just simply data on each study section? The practice exam diagnostic report does not show you any level of scoring. So it will not give you a pass or fail indication. It will just show you your domain level performance. So we'll just, again, show you the diagnostic information related to each of the domains that you're tested on. And again, it can help you address strong and weak content areas to help you really develop that study plan. Ivy, one question for you. How many case study questions are typically on the exam?
Every candidate will get 1 to 2 case studies on each exam. And the number of questions will vary between about 10 to 12 questions on each case study.
Perfect, thank you. We have a question on if you have to take the CFP exam more than once, can the retake occur in the same year? So I know IB mentioned that you have a 5-time lifetime limit for the exam, but there are limitations on how many times you can take the exam consecutively. So to answer your question, you can take the exam 3 times within a 24-month period. If you take the exam 3 times in 24 months, you have to sit out 1 year before you can take the exam again. So those are what the limitations are on the consecutiveness of registering and taking the CFP exam. Ivy, a question for here when you were talking about getting the preliminary results on exam day. Would the preliminary results you see after you finish the exam ever differ than the official results you get after a couple of weeks?
In 99% of the cases, it will not vary. But what that period of validation is for is to confirm, like I said, that the questions are performing as expected. In the very rare case that a question is not performing as expected, there might be a difference between your preliminary results and the final results. And in that case, CFP Board will reach out directly. And most times that happens in those who failed might pass, but again, it's 1 in 1,000. But we do leave that window to review and validate to make sure all of the questions are performing as expected and every candidate has the fair advantage on each question.
Thank you. And a couple of questions here just to wrap up. There were a couple of questions on is there going to be a replay of this webinar, and is it going to be available for as part of a recording? Yes, it will be posted on CFP Board's YouTube channel in probably the next week or so. We'll also email everyone who registered for the exam a link to the recording so you have access to this. There was a request to go over the sections discussed at the beginning once more. I think this is related to the domains. But my recommendation would be just to wait for the recorded link, and then you can certainly just rewatch it as many times as you need to go over all, or to hear that information. Another question on the mentoring program for the March 2025 exam. Yes, the mentoring program is open for the March 2025 exam. Enrollment closes, I believe it is January 24. So enrollment for the March 2025 exam closes January 24. So if you go to cfp.net/mentor, you will be able to enroll. And once you enroll, you're going to search for a mentor and then connect with that mentor, and then you'll get started. The What to Expect webinar. So the What to Expect webinar for the March 2025 exam will be held on January 16th. You can go to cfp.net/events to find the registration link. It does look like we may need to just make sure that is active on our events page right now. So we will do that very quickly. And then when we send the recording out, we'll remind everyone where they can find this link. But cfp.net/events will be the place you can find this. And again, the March 2025 What to Expect webinar will be on January 16th. And then a couple questions that just a little bit unrelated to the exam, but a crucial part to be able to sit for the exam is the coursework verification. When should my coursework be verified, or how quickly is it verified after submitting for verification? It should be pretty quick. I would say if you're still waiting for your coursework to be verified and we have the documentation from your registered program, or you did another acceptable path for the coursework verification, like accelerated path, and you completed the capstone, I would email our education team directly, education@cfpboard.org, and my colleague Tim can definitely help you out right away. He's very quick, but he can definitely help you out with making sure that everything is all set on the coursework side of things. If anybody has any questions, please reach out to us. We want to help you be successful. We want to help make sure you have everything that you need to feel ready for exam day. We want to make sure that, again, you are empowered with the resource information, with the information that you need. You can email us at the email address here, getcertified2024@cfpboard.org, or you can always email our exams team directly. That's IB and her team at examinations with an S, examinations@cfpboard.org. You can call our contact center, or you can always find more information about the exam at cfp.net/exam. And again, we are here to help you. We hope you learned a lot today. If anybody has any questions, reach out. Otherwise, have a great afternoon and a happy holiday season.